Hello, this is Ray Bodewin presenting today for the California Association of Health Facilities Disaster Preparedness Program. The topic for today in the presentation is earthquake preparedness and recovery. This presentation is geared for physical plant directors, environmental services directors, and anyone else interested in earthquake preparedness and recovery. Most of us have trained on earthquake procedures. We all should know how to drop, cover, and hold on. If you are standing or walking with a cane, stop what you are doing. Look for an area that will provide some type of substantial cover and hold on for the duration of the quake and for a few minutes afterwards in case of an aftershock. If you're using a walker, you may sit down in the walker please do so. Lock the walker and cover your head as best you can and hold on. If you're in a wheelchair, lock the wheels, cover your head and hold on. After the shaking has stopped, which may be seconds to minutes, make sure your area is safe, and then you must make system evaluations. What steps do you need to take after the shaking stops? Know that if this is a significant earthquake, you should be prepared for many aftershocks. Some may even be equal to or larger than the initial shake. Take time to be systematic in your approach to the event. Use some type of post-earthquake checklist to keep yourself focused and not miss any areas that need to be reviewed. The list is long and in some cases very tedious. If you use an incident command system, which I highly recommend, now is the time to use that type of tool and response guide. When you are dealing with a significant earthquake, keep in mind that you may need to use multiple components of your plan. There may be issues that you were working on prior to the earthquake striking, or issues that may arise that equally are dangerous and are a direct result of the earthquake occurrence. For example, you may need to deal with displaced residents that are having cognitive issues during the quake or confused by the chaos. You may have total utility failure as a result of the quake. In addition, we cannot predict when this will occur. Nighttime, weather issues, etc. may evolve as you deal with the incident. Stay focused and deal with each event one at a time. As you can see, there are areas of concern that may develop when you are vulnerable. Fires, utility failure, civil disturbance, people stuck in elevators, to name a few. So stay focused on the many areas and try to use a guide to help you prepare for the next earthquake. It is not a matter of if, but only when and where. Try to remember the acronym RACE, R-A-C-E. It is usually best used in fire situations, but I have found that if you remember this acronym, you may apply it to almost any emergency, and it will help you stay focused. Rescue is always first. You will really never know where you're going to be located for the earthquake. Your safety and for those around you are the top priority. Take time now to pre-plan your exit, areas to cover no matter where you are. Getting into the habit of using this technique will help you in the next emergency. As you go through the RACE process, implement your incident command system and open your command center if you have one, normally called an emergency operations center. While you are going through the process of checking on your safety and the safety of all others, expect confusion, shock, fear, and chaos. Having a system in place prior to the event will help you control the earthquake recovery and not let the earthquake control you. It is how you manage the unmanageable. If your disaster plan has a rapid response guide or an incident response guide, take that section out and go through the list. Assign positions. Remember that you will always have to have someone in charge. The incident commander is the only role that is always filled. Also remember that more than likely the timing of the earthquake will occur when resources are very limited. One person may wear all of the hats in the incident command system until additional help arrives. As mentioned in previous slides, there are many systems that will need to be checked and evaluated. Some of those systems are time-consuming, and you may need to briefly review the components and then focus on the infrastructure that is in worse shape. If your building has a natural gas system, is it equipped with a seismic valve? If yes, when was the last time you tested it to make sure it actually works? Do you have systems in place to check leakage, such as a leak detector or other methods such as water and soap, to check on the joints for each gas pipe? The piping system will need to be checked for the entire facility. It is tedious and very time-consuming. Make sure you have some type of document to keep track of what system and locations were checked and cleared, repaired, or shut down. If you smell gas, turn the gas off and notify the utility or call 911 immediately. If your facility has a natural or LPG gas system, make sure to check the structural integrity of the anchoring and bracing for the tank or tanks. Does the tank have a seismic valve? If yes, when was it last tested? Check all the discharge pipes from the tank to the building. When the earthquake occurs, depending on the magnitude, duration, and epicenter, the power to your building or region may be off for some time. The utility may turn off the power as a precaution, or the supply may turn off directly from the earthquake event. Be aware and careful around your building for overhead wires and/or systems that may be damaged by the quake. It is imperative that you maintain your generators and test not only the transfer time from normal to emergency, but also all the other components connected to that system. Not every building or facility has emergency power. If your building is equipped with an EP system or an emergency power system, it is imperative to test and maintain that equipment. You should have a backup to the backup, just in case your system fails while in use. Know who to call, have redundancy built into your program. Your maintenance needs to be well trained on the components of your system. As mentioned, not all buildings or facilities have an EPS system or an emergency power system. If you are a smaller type of facility, you are not immune to the failure. You must still have a backup system and test them often. After the earthquake occurs and you're going through the RACE program, RACE, that process, you have to pay attention to the lighting and the electrical systems. If you smell burning or hear popping or splattering sounds or types of sounds, that may be an indication of an electrical component that is compromised. Your staff should have arc flash protection and trained on how to don the equipment. Prior to entering an electrical room, check for indications of water presence. It is not unusual for water leaks that may find their way to the electrical room and its high voltage panels. Make sure you take the time now to prepare and train your staff on how to safely evaluate the integrity of an electrical room and its panels. If there are any sounds described earlier, you may need to shut down the electrical system as a precaution. Checking the structural integrity of a building should be left to the professionals. However, you may need to make a decision prior to the evaluation of a professional and/or a first responder. Checking on simple building components can help you make a decision to shelter in place, horizontal movement from one part of the building to another, a vertical movement from one floor to another, or, as your last resort, leaving the building. Are door frames in the building all leaning one way and not at 90-degree angles? Is there a pattern of broken windows or cracks in the building indicating an X pattern, which indicates a critical or major structural damage and failure? Is there spalling? Concrete that has cracked or fallen away sometimes exposes building structural components. If any of these are present, you should have the building inspected by a licensed professional. These are samples and pictures of different areas and buildings that have been prone to failure. You must inspect pavement and walking surfaces. Look for uneven or sidewalks that have buckled, have fissures, or cracked, and this is going to be creating a trip hazard. The broken windows anticipate several glazing systems that may fall. So never go walking out directly underneath a glazed area. Check your evacuation plans to make sure that it addresses not escaping through an area that is prone to having broken glass. Be systematic in your evaluation, create a grid, and document areas of concern. You may have to barricade a very wide area, and this may cause a hazardous condition, and make sure that you are staying aware of any type of aftershock. For each aftershock, you're going to have to reevaluate the building. Inspect your water delivery systems, domestic water, fire sprinkler supplies, your tanks, your sewage, and your storm drain systems. As you're checking the infrastructure of the building, don't forget to inspect all the piping systems. This really is a very long and tedious task. You have to be systematic in your approach. Make sure you document with a diagram of the building and that you've checked every single section of the building and clear any major issues. Check the attic, check your crawl spaces, check plenums, check elevator shafts, check your sump pumps, look at your sump pump systems and your HVAC systems, water tanks, boilers, water heaters, not only for cracks but in leaks, but you also want to check for structural failure. For your fire sprinkler systems, check for any kind of lateral movement. The Victaulic couplings may displace. Most are designed for 10% or 15% displacement. Sometimes this may be compromised. Make sure you have no leakage in any visible areas and non-visible areas. Check your ceiling tile systems. Panels will most likely fall or shift and may indicate also where leaks are. Sometimes they'll be bulging and they'll fall down. Make sure you check the entire grid for its integrity. And if there is any type of system that it has failed, make sure you close the area and barricade it for safety. Overhead lighting, make sure you check all the heating and ventilating and air conditioning. Your HVAC panels may be loose in the grid system as well. The picture that just popped up was an indicator of a lighting system that failed in an in a library, excuse me. Water tanks. Make sure you check the anchorage and your piping systems for going to and from the water storage tanks. Check for any kind of displacement or spalling. Check your motor mounts on your pumps. Those are very important because they're independent from the water tank but could cause a major issue. Check your boilers and water heaters, looking for your fuel supplies for any kind of leaks, your piping system, including the pumps, any kind of displacement in one way or another. Check your flue and exhaust systems. Make sure that there's no poisonous gases that are going to be enriching the atmosphere. Have a carbon monoxide detector. Does your facility actually have a carbon monoxide detector? Have your staff been trained on how to use a carbon monoxide detector? Make sure all of these systems are addressed in your emergency operations plan. Check your anchorage for any kind of failure or spalling, and assure that all the safeties are operational on all the different water heaters and boilers, steam boilers, and all those other types of systems. Hazardous materials. Check your rooms and make sure you're wearing the proper personal protection equipment that you should have, otherwise known as a PPE. Make sure you already donned these PPEs before entering an area that is possible and prone to any type of spillage. Does your facility in your emergency response plan have a system that addresses hazardous materials? Check your oxygen delivery systems if you have them. Make sure that the pressure in the building is not dropping. It's still intact. You can check all the gauges. That's going to indicate if you have any leakage inside the walls that are not visible. Make sure your staff know how to turn off the shutoffs and all these systems and how they are operated. Make sure your evening and night shift staff know how to work on these types of systems as well. Check the tank systems or cylinders to assure that they are not in a hazardous position or any kind of leakage at all. Elevator systems, if you have them, they are equipped with a seismic trip on the system and will activate and place the elevator out of service. Don't reset these elevators with your own maintenance crew. It must be performed by a licensed elevator technician. That technician is going to have to check the structural components of the shaft, the hydraulic fluid containment, any type of possible hazardous materials incident, hydraulic shaft displacement. Your control systems in the mechanical rooms have to be checked for electrical and structural integrity. Your overhead traction pulleys and your cables have to be checked for alignment. If not equipped with seismic trips, you may want to consider checking all of the above with a licensed technician. You and your team are going to need to evaluate the perimeter of your building or locations for structural integrity, including adjacent buildings, for street fissures, looking for street fissures, any type of landslide possibilities, overhead wire issues, any kind of fallen trees or precarious situations, broken windows on adjacent structures, looking for any type of vehicles that have been displaced, your street lighting systems, your fire hydrant systems, building security, freeways, overpasses, bridges, and transportation systems, and many more. These are all going to be systems that are going to affect your facility, and you have to check each one of these. Keep in mind that the earthquake may occur at a time and day, and more than likely will occur at a time when you least expect it. Things will look differently at nighttime versus during the day. While your building may be equipped for disaster, the fact is that there are many in the community that are not. Be prepared for the community to come to your facility. Have a plan for security. Does your facility have plywood for the broken windows? This is not only for safety, but for security of the building. Does your facility have plastic sheeting to prevent elements from entering your facility, such as rain, sleet, hail, wind? Does your facility have an inventory of the tools needed for securing the building or to rescue? Does your plan have an assignment for security sections to be staffed? Security vendors, to manage entrances and exits? Does your facility have a plan with vendors for supplies and staffing and other needs? Have a plan to help others. Is anyone in your facility a CERT member? This can be very advantageous to the facility. Have a plan for your staff to be prepared, and if they are not ready, that this is going to have to be something that they have to work on to make sure that your business plan is reliable. Does your staff and residents have go bags? Alarm or alert. Let someone know that additional help is needed in an area of your building or location. Let others know of a hazardous condition or area. Remember that in an actual major earthquake event, that the 911 system may be delayed in getting you assistance promptly. You may need to help yourself for a period of time before you're going to have any type of help from first responders. Contain or confine. Like an airplane's overhead storage, items around you are going to shift, and they're not going to be in the original position where they were originally placed. Cabinets are going to have breakable items. The glassware and plates may have shifted and may fall out when you open up the cabinet. Hazardous material cabinets and contents will have the same issues. Food storage with heavy pallets stored with canned goods, appliances, heavy items, any type of paper products. Overhead storage on shelving is more than likely going to be tipping over and falling. Confine those areas that are hazardous to others. Make sure you place barricade tape or other type of an obstruction to warn others of the danger. Does your facility have the barricade tape or other tools to close an area with the appropriate signage? Remind your team not everyone is going to be in compliance with the barricade. Many people will ignore warning signs, and especially in a high-stress environment. Be aware of a domino effect. If you move something, something else is going to be impacted by that move. Prior to the earthquake, evaluate furniture placement. Is it braced properly? If it were to move, would it block an exit or prevent any type of entry? Evacuation or extinguish. Evacuation of a building in an earthquake may not be the best choice. Try to get to the core of the building. Close shades and drapes or windows that are not broken. This will help prevent the spread of broken windows or broken shards that in the event of an aftershock, if not already broken on the original earthquake. Open all the doors and prevent them from closing. If the building has shifted, it may prevent normal operation of a door and would prevent an exit. Place a monitor at the entrance of your building to help with security. You have to develop an MOU, better known as, and Memorandum of Understanding, with facilities within 10 miles and beyond 25. Make sure your plan is realistic. Your facility may not be able to pick up entirely and move to another receiving facility in total. Reality is that you will be spread out and you're going to have to leave the county and possibly the state. Make sure you have a plan that that addresses electronic health records for medication, staffing, family notifications, tracking, and billing. Make sure you have solid documentation if you want reimbursement from FEMA. Without documentation, you will not get reimbursed from insurance and/or FEMA. Make sure you have a plan for the media. They're going to get involved one way or another. You have to have the position of public information officer staffed. Does your facility have one already identified? Make sure you have a system that's going to track evacuation of residents and staff. A tracking system for electronic health records. How are you going to actually transfer realistically to alternate sites? You're going to have to maintain HIPAA compliance. And there's many, many forms that you can use from the NHICS program. And this is only a small portion which will help you. Form 252, which is a staff timesheet. 254 for admissions, 255 for resident evacuation, 259 for casualties and fatalities, 260 for individual resident evacuation. You have to test your plan, so inspect what you expect. Education is primary, and you're going to have to educate staff, residents on the plan upon hire and at least once a year for all staff. You need to make sure that you advise all of the consultants that come into your building, physical therapists, nutritionists, pharmacy, all different types of consultants. Make sure you find the gaps and document and revise your plan. I haven't seen a plan that has really truly never required some type of revision at one point or another during the year. Document all of your training, take pictures with dates and sign-in sheets for all the different shifts. Make sure you show revision dates on the plan. This is Ray Bodewin presenting today for the California Association of Health Facilities Disaster Preparedness Program.